Are you curious about Gestalt language processing? You are not alone. Join me, Corinne Smoose, and speech therapy PD for our podcast, The Gestalt Get Together. Our episodes try to balance the enthusiasm and excitement about GLP and its associated intervention ideas, as well as a healthy dose of skepticism about how to understand and integrate this paradigm shift into your career and the field at large. We hope that you can get together with us to learn more about Gestalts.
Welcome to the School of Speech podcast, presented by SpeechTherapyPD.com. School of Speech is designed specifically for the school-based SLP to come together to discuss current topics, tackle difficult situations, and share our insights. Our goal is to bolster confidence, celebrate our triumphs, and foster a community dedicated to the excellence in the school setting. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Carolyn Dolby and I am your SpeechTherapyPD.com podcast host for School of Speech. School of Speech is designed for school-based SLPs so we can come together. We're going to explore current trends, share insights, and really champion our expertise. Our goal is to bolster confidence, celebrate our triumphs, and just really foster a community dedicated to the excellence in the school setting. Today's episode is AAC in Action, Planning Meaningful and Motivating Therapy Sessions in the School Environment. In this episode, we welcome back Kathryn D'Agostino Russo, part 2 people. This episode, Kate is here to help us plan motivating and meaningful therapy sessions across the settings, utilizing students' interests to enhance therapy targets, and how she's also going to help us get everyone else on board so that AAC is being used beyond just the speech room. So we are so lucky and so excited. But of course, we got a little bit of housekeeping. Each of our episodes are 1 hour, 60 minutes, and you can offered for 0.1 ASHA CEUs and some financial disclosures. Ms. Russo is an employee of New York City Public Schools, and she is receiving an honorarium from SpeechTherapyPD.com for her participation in tonight's episode. Non-financial, she is a member of ASHA SIG 12, and she is also on the committee, the Professional Development Committee for SIG 12. Yay! For me, I'm an employee of Portland Public Schools. I am an adjunct professor at University of Houston, so I'm both in Oregon and Houston and Texas still. I'm a private consultant for school districts across the nation, supporting their program development and staff training. I also receive compensation from SpeechTherapyPD.com for hosting this podcast. It's the best job ever. Non-financial, I'm still a member of Texas Speech and Hearing Association. I'm on their Feeding and Swallowing Task Force. I volunteer for Feeding Matters. I'm also a member of ASHA's interest groups 13, 14, and 16. Enough about me. We really want to know more about. Welcome back, Kate, and thank you so much for coming back. It was popular demand.
Oh,
right?
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Before we jump in, I want to say that your last episode, you focused on how to determine which AAC system is the best fit for our students. And our audience was amazing and begged to have you come back. And here you are.
Yes,
oh my gosh. And I love that this episode is going to really focus on the therapy part of it. So it's kind of like 2.
Yes.
I know we're going to jump into therapy, but I think what might be great for our listeners is to start off with remind us why we should choose AAC.
Sure, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to hear that so many more people are getting excited about AAC because it is something that I am truly just very passionate about. It really makes me excited to come to work every day. And so I'm happy that other people are getting the AAC bug. But like you said, we really should review why AAC is so important. If you are new to the term and you weren't able to listen to the previous episode, AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. So it's really any form of communication that we use in place of speech or to support speech. Sometimes people come to us and they are completely non-speaking and they don't use any speech, and maybe they use body movements, facial expressions, gestures, vocalizations that might not be understood by most communication partners. And in those cases, AAC is an alternative form of communication for them and can really help them communicate their wants and needs and thoughts and opinions and jokes to everybody in a more understandable way. But then there are also some people who come to us who do have some speech, but maybe it's very unintelligible due to, various disorders that they might have, or maybe they just break down in certain areas. Maybe they really get tense. They're not sure what words to say in certain communication opportunities, in which case that's an augmentative approach. So they'll have AAC to support the speech that they already have and make it so that they can communicate their wants and needs and thoughts and opinions and jokes, all the like, to everybody out there. So it's important to remember that AAC is just a little part of your communication toolbox. Anybody can use AAC at any point in their life, and it can take on a lot of different forms, whether it is a high-tech speech generating device, either a dedicated one from a company or an application on an iPad, or even a light tech communication board with some picture symbols that have to do with the specific situation. So there's a broad range of things that we can use to support communication, and a lot of times we speech therapists are the first person introducing it to a potential user, their family, and their communication partners. So it's important that we kind of have an idea of where we want to go with it and how we're going to implement it to make sure that we're starting off on the right foot.
I love the fact that you said that it should be something to be thought about for anybody, right? It's just
Yes.
an augmentative communication tool. So
Yes.
think outside the box of just our some non-verbal, I don't know, there's a better term I should have used.
Now a lot of times we're shifting to using non-speaking, but that's a great point to bring up, that some people think nonverbal. And what's actually interesting is that verbal really means pertaining to language. So if somebody can use AAC in any symbolic system, they're really using language. So that's why we can start shifting our language there. And I'll be honest, I only recently made that connection and started that switch. So it's okay if you find yourself still using some of the old terms. We just know better, and then we can try and be better.
Right. I love that. I know when we know better, we do better. And so speaking, thank you for giving me that term. I couldn't remember, but I really want to add that into my vocabulary because say non-speaking, you're right. That is very different. Being a communicator, we communicate in different ways. And so they are verbal. If you look at it that way, you're looking at what is communication. I love that. Our listeners are going to be like, okay, I'm going to take away with that. I love that.
Yes. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, my mind is blown. That makes so much sense. And then it also helps people understand that there's verbal communication and nonverbal communication and how important both of them are. Because sometimes people say, oh, they're nonverbal, and it makes it sound like the people cannot communicate anything when they're actually communicating so much at that time. So I do like to teach people that I'm working with about that, especially communication partners, because it really helps them see how much the individual is expressing if we just take the time to learn them and think about how we're communicating too. It's not about always changing the way the other person's communicating. We have to change some of our methods as well.
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful. I love it. Now, I'm only going to bring it back to me for like 1 second, and then we're going to come back to you. But when you're saying about not using non-speaking, I mean, don't say nonverbal, because that is making it sound like the child has no communication, you know, it's limiting them. Okay, so my specialty is swallowing, dysphagia. And so a lot of things, I am re-educating people because when I have students that are tube fed, have an alternative means of nutrition, whether it's G-tube, whatever, a lot of times the staff will say, oh, they don't eat. Yes, of course they eat. So what I find when they say, oh, they don't eat, then they don't give them the opportunities to go to the cafeteria, go have the, so I mean, it's just, it is that important to really start saying non-speaking, but still verbal and still a communicator. That way the staff get on board, the families get on board, and really with fidelity to realize they are communicating. And so we need to make sure that we are giving those opportunities. And I'm probably jumping ahead because I know you're going to get into that, but like getting everybody else involved. So before we get that, let's I'm sorry, I'll get off my little soapbox on the not eating. I say, of course they eat. If you don't eat, you're dead. So yeah.
No, that's another great example of, and that's something that I learned from you now. And I'm going to take that back and remind people that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I know we're a village here and I love it. I love it. Well, do you want to start, if we're going to get into some like thinking about using AAC? Oh, I should stop. I shouldn't have even said it that way. Thinking about, I was about to say, let's talk about thinking about using AAC. Oh my God, that's terrible. Please tell us how that we best communicate in our therapy sessions with students that have a variety of communication styles.
Sure.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that I do in my sessions, and I really try and teach this to every communication partner that I encounter, whether they are a teacher, a parent, a caregiver, another therapist, is acknowledging all communication modalities. Like I said before, there are so many different ways that we communicate and the people that we work with communicate. And communication starts with that connection. So we're making a connection. We want them to know that we're listening to them, whether they are using a sign language, whether they are using simple speech sounds like your early vowel sounds, whether they are using those body movements like pushing things away, or whether they are using symbols on a device. And sometimes it might not always be immediately apparent what they are communicating, but I do always try and tell my students when I'm working with them, like, I'm going to work with you to try and figure this out. When I'm not sure what they're saying, I say, I'm going to be really honest. I don't know what you mean. I thought you meant this. Sometimes when you do this, and I like to talk to them through, you know, when I see you push something away, that usually means that you want to stop. I think that you're angry, and here are some words that you might use. Or, you know, I saw that you were jumping up and down and vocalizing. It seemed like you really liked that toy. Here's what you can say. So when you're accepting those communication modalities, it's building that connection and then giving you your next steps of what you want to model, what communicative functions you're going to start working on in your therapy sessions. And that's kind of where you're picking out what is motivating for the student. Obviously, pushing something away, you know, the shaking your head no, that gets the message across, but you want to, that might be empowering to them to say, hey, no, I don't want that. So you're finding something motivating in that way because, you know, they're passionate about that. Or if they are so excited, they're going to feel passionate about whatever toy or book or video that you're engaging in. And that's where your hook is. So accept those modalities and then take it to the next step. And that shows you what you're going to work on and where you're going to model and what you're just going to communicate about in your session. You'll always have a topic if you can, you know, make that connection.
Right. And when you were talking about checking in with your communication partner, when you're and saying to them, okay, when you push it away, you're telling me no, you're confirming that is really what they mean, and teaching them also that their actions, their communication is getting a reaction, and it reinforces that.
Right.
Basic communication. And I love the other thing because it's so important for us to know what motivates students, you know, and taking that time. So you're telling us to start before we, you know, maybe the first step is Well, no, it is, because it's what you said, and I wrote it down. The first part of communication starts with connection. So
Mhm.
that's the beginning. So to start, before you start into therapy, make those
Mhm.
connections. Did I get that?
Yes.
Is that, yeah?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
definitely. Because I mean, if I don't have a connection with someone, I don't really want to talk to them. And it's the same for
Yeah.
the students and the people that we serve. So finding those basic connections is always going to be a great start. And remember to think outside the box. You said earlier something about thinking outside the box. Sometimes what motivates the people that we work with is a little bit different than what might be expected. And so just, being fun, just having fun, letting the pieces fall the way they may, embracing all types of play, all interests. That's a good way to get started, because if you try to put it in this cookie cutter thing, you're just losing all of the personability of it, and it's not really communication. It's just like drill. So
Yeah.
at least that's
It's,
how I feel. So
no,
I
I
try to
like
keep
it.
things
Yeah,
a
no,
little loosey-goosey in my sessions. That way we have a lot more chances to have genuine communication opportunities.
Well, there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of stigma that in the schools that from outside that, oh, speech, you just play games.
Mhm.
And part of that, we need to educate that we're not playing games to play games. We're
Right.
playing with purpose. I think I heard that statement somewhere, playing with purpose, and that, it's functional play to elicit our targeted goals. And so,
Mhm.
you know,
Exactly.
yeah, oh, I love
I
it.
know. And then we always go, I think it was Mr. Rogers who said that play is a child's work. So,
Yes,
like that's,
yes,
so technically we are working.
it
It's great
is
that we
a
can have
time.
fun too. And when we're having fun, that's when we have those spontaneous communication moments where you get, a little bit more language to model. It's not just boring, the same words and phrases and things. Sometimes we all know there are times when our language therapy, you just kind of have to do something slightly boring, like practicing tenses and things like that. It might be a little bit boring, but if you find something that everybody can be engaged in, you can make it a little bit more fun, and you can, sell it to our students.
I like the
Like
term you said, you
I
hook 'em.
know, and I say that sometimes, I know this is a little bit boring. I know that, but we kind of have to practice just a few times, and then, it's going to get a lot more fun. So just watch me one time and I'm going to show you where this word is. So, and just I like to be very like honest with my students,
Okay,
and so that they know what they're working on and why we're working on it. So I
sure.
have a student who uses a lot of body movements and early sounds to communicate, and they use a speech generating device. They just started using it with eye gaze, but they can also use their hands for it. And they often still choose to use body movements and their early sounds, which it is their right. They have the right to choose how they want to communicate. So I always accept it. But then I'm always telling them, the reason we practice on your device is because there are so many words on it, and you can be a lot more specific if you know some of these words. And I know you know the words, but
Mhm.
if you practice finding the words over and over again, it's going to get a lot easier. I know sometimes you want to use your body movements because it's easier for you. And of course, if that's how you want to communicate, absolutely. But I do want you to remember, if somebody comes up to you and they don't know you as well as I do, here are some other things that you can say. So even though the student is, 7 years old, I still like to be very honest with them so that they are aware of why we're doing what we're doing.
And where I see that connecting is that, yes, you're respecting their communicative choice modality, if they want to do the body movements, like you said, and early sounds. But then the part of it is being honest with them to say, when you do this, I might not know exactly what you're asking for.
Mhm.
Therefore, when you do this, the response, you're going to get a faster response,
Mhm.
for what you're wanting or needing. The
Mhm.
response is going to be much faster. Therefore, you're motivating. I'm putting you together here. So
Mhm.
respect them. You motivate them to use and they're motivated to use it because they're seeing the
Mhm.
benefit for themselves. It's not just a
Right.
benefit for us. You're showing the students truly how it benefits them.
Right.
When it's a benefit to them, they're going to start in growth.
Exactly.
Yes.
And actually, when you mentioned that, it did make me think too, something I'm always thinking about when I am planning my therapy sessions and, developing goals for a student is I think about Janice Light's communicative competencies for AAC. So they are the linguistic competence, the operational competence, the strategic competence, and the social competence. And so teaching our students to think about, which modality might be the most efficient for a situation really falls into that social and strategic competency areas. So that's just something to think back on. We're always thinking, can our students pick out the best way to communicate in a situation and
Can I
help
stop you
them
for a
develop
minute
that?
on the competencies? Because I was trying to write them down.
Of
You
course.
said linguistic,
Mhm.
operational,
Yes.
social,
Strategic.
strategic.
Yes. Social. And there is one new one. The original article only had the 4, but now we're starting to see the importance of the psychosocial competence area, kind of
Oh.
how a person feels about using AAC, their personal attitudes toward it, and things like that, and how it affects their emotional well-being.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. So I just want to reiterate those. So those that are listening, the 4, soon to be 5 competencies, or maybe we'll go ahead and go to 5: linguistic, operational, strategic, social, and psychosocial. All right.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to make sure all listeners got this.
Of course, yeah. And that's a great way to, make sure that you're teaching all the different skills in your therapy sessions that go along with AAC. If you're not familiar with these competencies, I'll give a quick review, but the linguistic competency, that's kind of what you think of in terms of our traditional speech and language therapy. Developing vocabulary, learning different communicative functions, using grammar and things like that. And then our operational competency looks at how the user is able to control their device. So are they able to use the go back button? Can they delete their sentence bar? Do they use the search function? Do they turn it on and off and use the volume button? Strategic, I touched on a little bit, how are they do they choose an efficient method? Are they repairing communicative breakdowns? Are they noticing, hey, my battery is starting to die, I'm going to need a charge, and finding someone who can maybe help them with that? And then our social aspect is, initiating a conversation, maintaining the conversation, taking turns, and using, different maybe idioms, even like see you later or catch you later, alligator, and things like that. And then I mentioned our psychosocial is more our personal attitudes towards AAC. So thinking about all of those things together will come and bring yourself a really solid AAC therapy session and help your user become a lot more efficient and confident at using AAC.
I love that, because we would love to have a handbook on everything. We would like to have a step-by-step guide. And that's just not feasible, because
Right.
personable, like you even mentioned that in the beginning, that, if it's in a box and we just have these steps, then it's not really student-centered. But if we start thinking about these competencies and go through those competencies, then it kind of helps give us those boundaries and things to work on. Oh, where are they within those? So we're not only seeing what are our competencies, what are the students' competencies in linguistics? The vocabulary, do they have the vocabulary? Do they know where the vocabulary is? Do they know how the machine works? So like if you can go through, I think you're just setting up our therapy right there.
Yeah, and you just made a good point too, especially for somewhat like the operational and the strategic competency areas, using some of the skills that are in those competencies and reassessing ourselves, because oftentimes we are one of the most skilled communication partners for the people who use AAC because we know how to use it, but like we know how to support language and language development and things like that. But we also have to think, hey, how do we use the technology? And we need to know that technology in and out so that we're able to support the people that we serve. And again, you can learn to use the technology along with the students that you work with. I know I say you should know it in and out, but you don't know in and out in one day, and neither does our students. So it's okay to say, hey, I'm new to this too. Let's find this word together. Or today I'm going to be practicing, using the volume button. Can you help me with that? And then sometimes our students like to be the teacher as well. So that's a great way to get them involved and show them it's okay to not know everything right away all the time overnight.
That is wonderful. The one who teaches
Mm-hmm.
learns. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Do you have any, I feel like in your first episode, and I'm gonna let everybody that's listening know about the first episode, so that because they're gonna want to go back and listen to it. But I feel like you gave us some resources on how to get some knowledge on certain devices.
Sure, yes. So if you are, new to exploring the devices, one thing you can do is some of the applications and programs have free or light versions that you can download. So Tobii Dynavox has the TD Snap application, and that is free for SLPs with their ASHA certification. So check that out. TouchChat and LAMP, which are two applications that are developed by PRC Saltillo. If you complete a training through them, I'm not exactly sure which training, but you can become a partner through if you complete one of their trainings, they will give you a code to download it for free. But also, if you're not able to explore on your own device, you could just go on YouTube and type in any of the programs, and you might say, how do I search for a word on ProLoco to go? And you'll get a video that shows somebody using the search function. So it's very easy. And you mentioned earlier that I actually am an assistive technology evaluator for my district. And sometimes when I'm actually at trainings, people will ask me a question and I will say to them flat out, hey, I don't know how to do that. Let's go on Google together. And then we watch a YouTube video together, because
I love it.
yeah, it's totally okay to do that. I have learned so many of my things by watching YouTube videos, going on the device websites. They all have tons and tons of videos, live webinars, things like that to learn about. And then if you're really still in a bind, you can always reach out to your local consultants. All of the major device vendors have their own local consultants, and they are so helpful to giving you all sorts of resources. And oftentimes they will come to you or have a Zoom with you, and you can learn more about the applications and, learn if the features of those programs might be a good fit for your students who might not yet be using AAC, but then also show you all of the different features that you haven't explored yet. And you'll see, hey, I can take it to the next level with my students by doing this.
Yeah, I knew you would have all the resources for us. Thank you so much, Kate. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really phenomenal. There's really a lot of resources out there that are free. I love that. Get your rep. They want you to use their machines.
Yes. And you know what is even amazing about a lot of the local reps, if you reach out to them, they will send you poster size and paper sized versions of the applications. So then you have a light tech version of the communication program that you can model on, use as a backup for your students, give it to teachers to use in their classroom. Sometimes I ask parents, hey, would you be interested in using a poster at home? And they're like, yes, I will put it in their bedroom, in their playroom, in the kitchen. So they have a wealth of products, and most of the time those papers, like the paper-based boards and the posters, are completely free. So it's a great way for everybody to get a little bit more used to the program itself without necessarily needing to have access to the device at all times.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. And how smart. Yeah. Like why don't that just saved us so much time for us developing something. We don't ain't no one got time to reinvent the wheel, people.
I know. Yeah.
So go get that stuff. They want to give it to you. Take it.
Yes, yes. And
Right?
like you said, they want you to use their product. And also it just empowers you more. So, anytime I'm at a training or an expo or conference, even if I feel like I don't need boards, I just grab as many as I can because you
Mhm.
never know when you're going to use them, when you're going to need to hand some out to somebody. And then it's also just helpful. I can think, oh, wait, where is that board located? So that I know in the future. They're great for practicing. That's how I got a lot of practice done in my early years, is on light tech boards.
Smart cookie over here. I love it. I don't even know where to go next. I mean, you just have so much knowledge for us. I love it. And so you're always full of resources. I love it.
Actually, speaking of resources, I have an idea of something we can mention is
Yeah.
that a lot of the companies have areas of their websites where you can find activities to use. And of course, you can use them with your students who are using that application, but you can use them with anybody. It just gives you an idea of, what communicative function to practice, what words to practice. Of course, if you are using a product from their line, it is going to have visual supports that go with a specific speech generating device. But again, you can just adapt that to use with others. So for example, PRC Saltillo every year does a literacy planner. So they pick a book and they have all sorts of extension activities that go with the book. And then they have your visuals and like smart charts and things that go along with their specific applications. So that's really cool to try out. They also do some calendars. Like one year, you can always go to see the stuff from past years.
I was just
But
about to ask you that. Like, do they have them archived? So, I mean, could
yes,
you
they're all
imagine?
archived. But the best, I mean, they're all amazing. But one of my favorite things is, I don't remember what year, but if you type in Saltillo science calendar, it will pop up and it is a whole year of science experiments. And I think if you are trying to get more communication partners on board with using AAC, especially in the classroom, this is your ticket, the science experiments.
Okay.
So I worked with a teacher for many years and we had such a great relationship in the classroom, and we just were looking for something to jazz it up and get the kids really excited. And so we started pulling these science experiments from the calendar and the students loved them. We got so much spontaneous language out of them. Everybody was commenting and, asking questions and just genuinely excited to like see what was going on. But we were also doing something that went with the curriculum. Science is something
Yeah.
that our students are doing every day at school. So it was an easy way to do something that they're already doing, but building in AAC, and then also not just completely reinventing the wheel. We didn't have to make all the supports and plan out the words because it was already there for us. So we could focus more on supporting the students and, I could focus more on coaching everybody. Here's how we're going to be a good communication partner. Here's how we're going to model. Here's where we're going to build in wait time and things like that. So if you take one thing away of a free resource to plan some therapy activities, look for the science calendar.
So I just thought while you were doing that, I was just gonna pop it in there, but now but I want to, yeah, I'm already on their website looking it up, but I don't want to slow us down because this is all
Of
good.
course.
Don't wait on me. But I love that because
Mhm.
you're also showing the staff, the teachers, how to incorporate whole class
Mhm.
and be so inclusive.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Exactly. And it was I think also too, I mean, maybe I'm biased because I always liked science class, but I think for so many of our students, science is so exciting because you just really never know what's going to happen. And sometimes your experiment just might straight up not work.
Mhm.
And that's an experiment in itself. And you could talk about, hey, I don't wonder why that's didn't happen. I feel like so many of the students who people might say, oh, they're motivated by nothing. Science is something that randomly motivates them. And it's a little bit like I wouldn't have normally thought, hey, I'm going to do science experiments in my therapy session, but it's really fun. And when I can do them, I really enjoy it.
I mean, it just made me start thinking about like the cognitive levels, like our little kids that are like in that imaginative, the ethical thinkers. I think I've heard somebody refer them to. Everything's magical, so everything
Mhm.
exists. But when we're getting into our school age kids, they're more of those concrete thinkers.
Mhm.
And so you're pulling them in on, wait a minute, let's make a hypothesis.
Right.
No?
Yeah. And even if like I always say to when we're doing these, like they can say anything they want
Yes.
in a your typical classroom where, nobody needs accommodations, everybody's using speech. We know how kids are. They're gonna say whatever they want, even if it
Yeah.
seems so strange to us. We were all kids once and we were saying whatever we wanted, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a little bit wild. So I say, whatever they want, and you never know, in their own way, they are probably making a connection that it might not be as apparent to us.
yeah.
So when I'm letting them make their hypotheses and things like that, anything goes. And then that's where we come in as a communication partner. We're assigning meaning and we're trying to tie it back in, and we're expanding, those typical things that we learned in school where you're expanding and recasting and getting a little bit more participation and modeling some different language functions and phrase types. So, it all builds in. People think AAC is scary, it's so different, but it's just another tool for doing your language therapy. It's the same stuff that we are used to doing and we're trained to do. So you already have the tools, you just have to think outside the box a little.
Right. And right. Just remind ourselves that we actually do have the skill.
Mm-hmm.
And it is scary. And I do, unknown is scary, but you're basically telling us we already know it, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And like I said earlier too, and it's okay to admit things that you don't know and just work with your student, with your team to try and find the answers. And, that's a good learning experience for everybody.
I heard somebody say once that not only, but wise people know what they don't know.
Yes.
So know what you don't know and find
Mhm.
out. Be
Yes.
wise. Be wise.
Yes. And I think that's what makes me so excited about AAC too, is that I can learn something new every day because it is such a rapidly changing field. So it keeps it really exciting for me. And that's why I love to do the therapy so much.
I can tell your passion just comes through. I mean, it's very intoxicating for us.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. No, that's why we wanted you back, and you're back, and I'm loving it. What else did we get through? What else about therapy sessions should we be thinking about? Picking materials like you said, science experiments. I love that. Incorporate curriculum. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think especially nowadays, like we are all straddling that child-led therapy with also
Right?
a push for more like push-ins and curriculum-based things. So there's definitely a happy medium. So like I said, the science experiments, there are definitely some fun ways to pull in lots of curriculum stuff. Just thinking sometimes if you just sit down with the people around you, like the other people on the team, and thinking, what types of activities are you doing in the class? What's something like really fun that we can plan on, say, like Fun Friday, as a good way to practice a skill that then maybe the following week they're still using throughout the day, throughout the week. So maybe, for example, one of my favorite activities it's called the smell test. And basically I just bring in candles and spices and essential oils, and we all take turns smelling them and commenting it. Does it smell good, bad? I like it, yuck. Or even for some students, we might just do more and stop. I want to smell more or I want to stop. But it's great. Everybody gets involved. And then I might say, okay, everybody had a lot of good practice with these commenting. Next week, I want everybody to practice commenting after you eat snack, after you read a book. And so you kind of got everybody in the classroom on the team involved. So then they have a little takeaway that they can practice during different parts of the school day when maybe you're not pushing in or you're not right there readily available, but they have something to go on. And then that commenting skill can be tied back into whatever they are doing. They just did something with the curriculum, but then they can practice your skill too.
Two things
Mm-hmm.
that you just, for me. Okay, this smell test that you're talking about, because I do feeding swallowing, I'm
Mhm.
thinking using that in a group, and maybe
Mhm.
you have somebody that is a reluctant feeder or has an augmentative or an alternative means of nutrition.
Mhm.
Talking about bringing in the smell test and smelling things without oh my gosh, I'm just seeing how you could have a mixed group.
Mhm.
And actually, the activity is focused for both.
Yeah,
Oh,
and actually, that's why I started smell tests. I was working with some students who had alternate means of nutrition, and I was like, well, you know, it was around a holiday and we wanted to do something, I think it was around Thanksgiving. We wanted to do something with like pumpkin pie. And I was like, but that's not fair because they can't really participate. They can just make it. And I thought, why aren't we just smelling? Everybody can smell it. And
yes.
maybe somebody wants to put some spice on their finger and eat it, but everybody can smell it. So, of course, if you are doing something like a smell test, checking with caregivers and medical
Yeah.
staff just to make sure that it is safe, that it's not going to cause an allergy or a seizure or anything like that. But whenever I've done this, everybody is motivated to participate. So it's one of my favorite activities.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I love when you have one activity that
Mhm.
hits all the targets.
Mhm.
So you have a mixed group setting, you're hitting all these different targets. Now, the second thing is
Mhm.
I saw the cutest thing at a junior high in my district here in Portland. It's a new job for me and I absolutely love it. The OT at the campus, her name's Alyssa Pollard, and she set one of our gals' devices. Oh no, let me back up. Another classmate has a fixation on buses, bus
Okay.
stops, and being a bus driver. And this
Mhm.
is right at Halloween time. And of course, he was going to dress up as a bus driver. So
Amazing.
our gal is in a wheelchair. The classroom project was to design her wheelchair into a bus.
Wow.
Then they programmed the children programmed the different, they made the bus stops, which of course the one boy who was just totally fascinated knew exactly the route.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the different kids at the different routes, then programmed in her device that when she could, right before she was getting to that, it would be next stop,
Oh, how fun.
everybody was participating in that.
Mm-hmm.
It was gorgeous. And so, yeah, so shout out to
That
Portland.
sounds so fun. I love
I
that.
know. I just thought I'd just throw that one out there because I love it. It wasn't
Mhm.
me. I'll give the credit. Yeah. Annie Simpson and Alyssa Pollard. Those are the two that did that. I just think they're amazing.
That's so great.
Yeah. So yeah, okay, listeners, I think thinking outside of the box,
Mm-hmm.
find interests, the interests that your kiddos have and incorporate that way possible. It doesn't have to be exactly what you might have thought. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Again, the activity can be anything. I think when I was in grad school, one of my supervisors said a good SLP can have a fantastic session with a pen, a paperclip, and a post-it note. So, like, just thinking, hey, anything can become your therapy session. And then thinking back to language development and the different things that we are trained to work on. So, I'm constantly thinking back to, okay, we want them to have a vocabulary of at least 50 words before we're starting to do 2 words. And then, I'm trying to teach them different phrase types. And then as they get really good at that, then I might start going into using those tenses and, possessives and things like that. So always thinking back what is typical language development and how can I use AAC to develop that language? And again, sometimes people learn skills at different rates, and that is okay. So, but that's not to say you can't still model and expose them to language that is a little bit more advanced than what they're using. We kind of need to do that in order for them to grow their language. If you are only ever modeling 3 words for your student, they're only going to have a vocabulary and be able to express 3 words. So keep thinking what your end goal is. We want them to be able to express anything they want, however they want. So giving access to all the different words and different phrase types, modeling the different words and phrase types and tenses and grammar markers, and, explicitly teaching those things. That way we can keep moving them along and giving them those tools if they would like to use that to communicate. Because again, like we said before, it's okay if they choose to communicate a different way as well.
Right. Accept everything, because we're very inclusive. We're, we're very diversity affirming.
Yes.
Yeah, all diversity, all not just yeah. Do you want to give us a little bit more about using typical language development to guide? I think you were just getting in there, and
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you have not read the article by Kathy Binger about applying a developmental model to AAC therapy, that is a must read. Kathy Binger, so Binger. If you type in on Google, like Binger developmental model, that is an article that should pop up right away. But I think is an amazing research article, but 2, I think every one of us should reread it every year because it's such a good reminder of what we need to be doing in therapy. And so basically, it kind of looks at typical language development and then a few different thought processes for introducing AAC. And the main takeaway is that we need to make sure that when we are using AAC, we are using it thoughtfully with a robust vocabulary. So it includes a lot of different word types, verbs, nouns, pronouns, grammar tenses, because language doesn't exist in a vacuum. We have to be able to have a lot of different types of words so that we're able to formulate it and like recombine it into our own message. So that's why I'm always thinking about typical language development. I currently work with younger students. They are in kindergarten to 2nd grade. And a lot of them, this is their first experience using AAC when they start on my caseload. So oftentimes they maybe use 1 or 2 words. So I'm usually, expanding that vocabulary and teaching them a lot of words. But then as they are with me and my coworkers for a few more years, we really start, okay, they're really getting a lot of different types of vocabulary. Let's start teaching agent plus action, action plus object, action plus preposition, adjective plus object. I think I mentioned all the 4 types. I usually try to model each phrase type at least 1 time during every session, just so they're getting exposure to it. And then from there, I will be completely honest, because I work with younger students, I don't often get to the point where I'm working on verb tense, but that's because the students are not with me for long enough. I think by the time they move on, they've had AAC long enough, are starting to really get those basic 2-word and 3-word phrases. Then their next therapist starts to work on grammar with them.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm thinking all the time. And like I said, I'm looking at the communicative competencies at the same time to make sure that I'm hitting all of the areas and trying to support them across all of their environments.
So we've got you're using the communicative competencies. Is that what they were? That's the linguistic. Oh, let's see if I remember. Yes, I can. Linguistic, operational, strategic, social, psychosocial. Yay!
You got it.
Gold star for Carolyn today.
Yes.
Then along with making sure you're going through those competencies, not only with yourself, but also along with your students, is that you are also following typical language development, because that's universal, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So just thinking about, how do we normally develop language? That's a good basis to start from because we're, building those building blocks so that we can keep going and going and going. And that's why I said earlier, you need to have access to a robust program so that you are able to keep the development going. If you don't have access to a lot of words, you really are going to get stuck and not able to keep developing that language in the way that most of us do because we have access to so much language. So that's why it's important. And, light tech boards, some people might need and prefer to just use light tech boards based on an activity. But even sometimes on light tech boards, there are ways to indicate tenses and possessions and things like that. So keeping that in mind too, that just because someone might prefer to use light tech, they still need to be given access and taught and modeled some of the other language models and language types.
So I think what I'm hearing is don't just don't limit them to just the yes, no buttons, people. Right? I mean, yeah, you want to, I mean, of course, some of them we need to start there. I'm not belittling that. I'm sorry if I hope that didn't come across like that, but I'm just saying we've got to go beyond just the yes, no.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
just go beyond just the nouns.
Right. Because think about, for me personally, I get very bored in a session if there are only 2 words that I'm able to model. It's just like if you only had access to yes, no, unless you do something like partner assisted scanning, you really are just asking yes, no questions the entire time. And that's really boring for me. It's really boring for the student I'm working for. No one wants to talk then. So the more words we can have, sometimes you might be, practicing requesting recurrence for a while, and maybe your student's not motivated by that. Maybe they want to talk about, airplanes, and they want to talk about them going fast and slow and up and down. So then when you start doing some work with adjectives and prepositions, and they're locked in and there's so much that they want to talk to you about and that you can practice. But if you were just using a board that just had more on it, you never would have known. So that's why I'm constantly giving access to a lot of words, modeling a lot of things, and really talking with all communication partners involved. Like sometimes people will say, well, they're only using 2 words. Like we don't want to overwhelm them. But if we are not giving them access to anything, they can never tell us anything. And everybody has potential. Everybody has the abilities that we need to help them, use. And we don't want to be the person limiting them. That is just, that would make me feel so bad if I was just limiting somebody, and I don't want any of my students to ever feel bad about themselves and feel like they are limited, which is why I want them to have access to everything to make them feel empowered. And I like to say that to people, think how empowering it is if someone feels like you can do something and you have all these words and it's up to you to choose how to do it. So that's why I really want everybody to have it. And I think it's David Yoder who one time said, no one is to anything. So no one that we work with is to anything to not be able to use AAC or to learn to read and to write and things like that. So we just never know. And we will never know if we don't provide the
Opportunity.
AAC, and start doing that therapy and giving access to that language. So,
and I know that a lot of SLPs, we feel siloed, that we're the only one doing this. We're the only one practicing. What can we do to really get other school professionals? How do we get everybody on board? Let's get it outside of just the speech room. And I know we kind of talked about some of the activities, but I think maybe how do we, I know that the activities we could be doing, but how do we get them to be doing them without us?
Right. So if you are in an environment where you're able to collaborate and, do co-treating sessions, that's an amazing way to do it. But something that I sometimes do, and maybe it's a little sneaky, I'm sure that the other therapists that I work with have caught on, but to me, but I'll say, what's something that you're doing in your therapy sessions that you'd like me to work on with them? Like, have you been practicing, scribbling? In which case I'll make sure that we do like a coloring activity so that I can give you
Okay.
like a little work sample here. Do you want them to practice like taking their jacket off or, going up and down the stairs? I'll try and do a therapy session in the stairs for you. Like that way they can practice. And then oftentimes, because they've asked me to, hey, can you practice this? Or like, is there something that I can do? And I'll be like, well, actually, this is one of the words I'm really, for example, right now I have a student, who we're really working hard on protesting because when he wants to protest, he'll just put the items on the table and just not touch them. But if it doesn't involve items, he just kind of sits there. And so it's like, are you protesting or are you just taking a break and you're going to come back to it? Like, we kind of don't know. So we've been working on protesting because I want him to make it known to us. Like, this is me saying I'm not doing it. So I told everybody on the team, hey, if there's one thing that you can help me with, just model stop when he does this, so that he knows that this is what it means. And everyone was like, oh, that's actually like very easy. I was like, yeah, that's all you need to do for me, the end. And then sometimes people start to feel more confident after they've just been given that one little thing that they can incorporate into their session. And they might say, oh, then I started modeling Go and, I noticed that they can use 2 words. So I'm trying to work on that a little bit more. So it's a little bit of a give and take.
No, it's like you're kind of doing therapy with them. I'm not, but I like the way you said that when you gave them just a little job, like here's a little idea of honestly just model stop when he does that behavior to put the communication to that action. They're so motivated that they were like so successful that brought them to say, oh, I did Go, and like love that.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to feel, a pat on the back and way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, we're not in a silo. We can all be working on these things. It's not like the student comes to speech and communicates and then they leave and that's it. They don't have anything.
Right.
They don't need to say anything the whole rest of the day. So, or like you don't leave OT and that's it. You don't have to, manipulate anything. So
Right. You don't ever have to put your sock on.
exactly.
Or
So
toilet. We need to do that without the OT too. Yeah, to know that these things really they have to be done. Like OT, I think OTs have it a little easier, that they get a little bit more of the buy-in. Maybe we need to follow suit with them,
Yeah.
and set that expectation. Maybe when we're talking about goals, is to make sure that we have more than just us as the data collectors.
Right.
Right?
Definitely. And sometimes if you just create like little motivating challenges in your school environment, that can help people get excited. Last May for Better Hearing and Speech Month, my coworkers and we created these weekly challenges, and it was a simple tally system, like see how many times you can model Go. And at the end of each week, based on how many tallies a classroom got, we put a bunch of their names in a raffle and they won like a pizza party. But so many people were like, oh, now I know how to use the search function. Now I know where this word was. And like, we would sometimes pop in and say like, if somebody did this, what would you model? And like, just anything, any type of participation, they'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I would model like. And we'd be like, okay, great. You get an extra raffle. Like, it got people really excited about trying to use AAC more outside of the therapy session. So,
oh my gosh, I love it.
Lean into the fun with the adults too.
Well, you know what? I mean, yes, we are adults, but I'm telling you, getting praise means something. Getting not just, oh, you all are great teachers, oh, you're doing a great job, but doing specific praise is just as powerful for our staff,
right,
as it is for our students. Because when you can point out that they're doing something exceptional, something extra, and I'm noticing it, and it is actually creating this ripple effect, if you will, win.
Right. And then everyone's just more on board with AAC.
I love it. Wow, I can't believe, okay, wow, we are coming to the end. I can't
Yes.
believe it. Part 2.
That went so fast.
I know. It's like, no, I
I
don't want
know.
to
We
leave.
could talk about this all night.
I know, I want to. Again, what another fabulous episode. But I want to let our listeners know that if you haven't heard the first episode, go onto Speech Therapy PD, or if you download from any of your podcasts, look for School of Speech, and Kate's is AAC. The first one is called AAC in Action, from feature matching to trials to implementation. And I am urging you, every one of you, to go listen to that one, because if you are as motivated as I am right now after part 2, go back to get part 1. Really. Kate, thank you so much. You are amazing. You are doing great work. You're making this hard work fun, because what we do is hard, ladies and gentlemen. I know that no matter what we do and what we specialize in, it, we make it look easy, but I want you to know, I know it's hard. We are all doing hard work. I applaud everyone out there that keep doing the hard work, because we can do hard things. We can do
we really
things.
can.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, I guess we have to say goodbye. I'm so sad. But thank you everyone that is listening. And we hope to see you again. Kate, I can't wait to talk with you again and say, let's get you back on, because I know there's more that you want to talk about, and we will get you on for that.
You know, I can talk about this all night, all day. And I'm always learning something new, so I probably will have something new to share.
I can't wait. I can't wait. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on today's podcast. Remember to go to speechtherapypd.com to learn more about earning ASHA CEUs. We appreciate your positive reviews and support, and would love for you to write a quick review and subscribe. If you have indicated that you are part of the ASHA registry and entered both your ASHA number and a complete address in your account profile prior to the course completion, we will submit earned CEUs to ASHA. Please allow 1 to 2 months from the completion date for your CEUs to be reflected on your ASHA transcript. For our School of Speech listeners, we have a special coupon code to receive $20 off any annual subscription to speechtherapypd.com. Head over there to get ASHA CEUs for listening to this podcast and all other episodes. The code is SCHOOL20. That is SCHOOL20. Hope to see you on our next episode. Also, please don't hesitate to tell us which topics you would like us to cover in future episodes. To get in touch, drop us a line in the comment section or send us a message on social media.